I stood there, drenched from head to toe, staring at the locked door of what used to be a symbol of our shared dreams. The storm outside mirrored the tempest in my heart, but it was nothing compared to the hurricane about to be unleashed. Gripping the doorknob, I inhaled deeply, bracing myself for the confrontation that had been brewing for far too long. "Ethan," my voice, sharper than I intended, cut through the pitter-patter of the rain as the door swung open, revealing my husband Ethan, looking as if he'd just seen a ghost. "We need to talk. Now." His gaze, once filled with warmth and love, now held a flicker of annoyance that quickly morphed into concern. "Kira, what's wrong? You're soaked." Ignoring the urge to break down, I steadied my voice, my eyes locked on his. "It's Lily," I said, the name of our daughter weighing heavily on my tongue. She's gone, Ethan." The color drained from his face, his body tensing as if preparing for a physical blow. "Gone? What do you mean? Gone? Kira, please." The pain in his eyes was real, but so was the anger and betrayal simmering inside me. "I mean, she's been in a terrible accident because you were too busy to care, because you've been too caught up in your own world to notice she needed you." Ethan staggered back as if I'd struck him, his hand reaching out for support against the doorframe. No, that can't be true. "Kira, please, tell me this is a mistake." There was a part of me that wanted to take back the words, to soothe the agony etched across his face. But the larger part, the part fueled by months of frustration, anger, and heartache, needed him to feel the weight of his neglect. "You should have been there, Ethan. For all the times you promised and failed to show, this is on you." His voice broke as he spoke. "I need to see her. Please." The resolve in my heart wavered for a moment, seeing the man I once loved beyond measure crumble before me. But this was necessary, a shock to jolt him back to the reality from which he'd been absent far too long. "She's at the hospital. They're doing everything they can, but you should have been the one doing everything for her long before this." Ethan moved past me, grabbing his keys and wallet in a haste, his actions filled with a panic I hadn't seen in years. "I'll go now. I'll make it right, Kira. I swear." Watching him rush out into the storm, I felt a bitter mix of satisfaction and sorrow. This was the start of a long, arduous journey. A journey to make him understand the depth of his failures, not just as a husband, but as a father. The rain continued to pour, each drop a reminder of the tears shed in the silence of our crumbling home. As the sound of Ethan's car faded into the distance, I closed the door behind me, leaning against it for support. The house felt emptier than ever, a shell of the love and laughter it once held. But this was just the beginning of a reckoning for Ethan's negligence and the first step towards reclaiming the life that we, especially Lily, deserved. The deception about Lily's condition was a desperate, calculated move, a lie born out of the necessity to awaken Ethan from his complacency. The real battle, however, lay ahead. It was a fight for justice, for accountability, and above all, for the restoration of a broken family torn apart by indifference and presumed infidelity. Tonight the storm raged on, both outside and within the walls of the Wilsons' home, heralding the tumultuous journey that lay ahead. The hospital's fluorescent lights felt harsh against my eyes as I paced the sterile hallway, waiting for news on Lily. The lie I told Ethan gnawed at me, but desperation had driven me to extremes. The sound of approaching footsteps pulled me from my thoughts, and I turned to see Ethan, his face a mask of worry and fear. "How is she? Can I see her?" he asked, breathless, from what I assumed was a combination of his rush here and the anxiety consuming him. I hesitated, the moment of truth looming large. "She's stable. They're running some tests. Ethan, there's something I need to tell you." His relief at my first words was palpable, but confusion quickly took its place. "What is it? What's wrong?" Taking a deep breath, I faced him squarely. "Lily isn't gone, Ethan. I lied because I didn't know how else to get through to you. You've been so distant, so absent. She needed you, and you weren't there." The transformation in Ethan was immediate. Relief gave way to anger, his eyes narrowing. "You lied about our daughter's life?" "Yes, I lied. Because nothing else seems to matter to you lately. Not me, not Lily, not the life we built together." My voice rose, tinged with anger and pain. Ethan stepped back as if my words were physical blows. "I can't believe you'd do this. How could you play with our emotions like that? How could you not see what's happening right in front of you?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. You're never here, Ethan. And even when you are, you're not really present. We might as well be ghosts. Our heated exchange was cut short by the nurse's arrival, her expression one of professional concern. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, Lily is asking for you. We followed her in silence, the tension between us thick. Seeing Lily, so small and vulnerable in her hospital bed, brought home the reality of our fractured family. Ethan's face softened as he approached her, guilt written all over his features. Lily, I'm so sorry, sweetie. I should have been there for you, he murmured, taking her hand gently. Lily's response was a weak smile, her voice barely a whisper. It's okay, Daddy. I just want us to be a family again. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Ethan and I sat in a cold, uncomfortable silence in the hospital cafeteria. The distance between us felt insurmountable, a chasm widened by neglect and hurtful truths. Ethan, we can't go on like this. Something has to change, I said, breaking the silence. He looked away, his jaw clenched. I don't know if I can forgive you for lying about something so serious. And I don't know if I can keep living with a ghost of a husband. Ethan, you've been avoiding us, staying out late, missing family dinners, forgetting Lily's events. Is there someone else? Ethan's silence was answer enough, his avoidance a deafening confirmation of my worst fears. I see, I whispered, feeling a cold resolve settling in my heart. This was more than just neglect. It was betrayal. The ride home was silent, each lost in our own thoughts. As I lay in bed that night, the magnitude of Ethan's betrayal weighed heavily on me. The love that once bound us together had been eroded by lies and indifference. But as I listened to Ethan's shallow breathing, a plan began to form in my mind, a plan to expose the truth and seek justice for the pain he had caused. The road ahead was clear. Ethan's negligence and infidelity would not go unpunished. For Lily's sake, and for my own, I would fight to ensure that he faced the consequences of his actions. This was no longer just about saving our marriage. It was about reclaiming my life and protecting my daughter from further harm. The following weeks were a blur of hospital visits and silent dinners at home. Lily's recovery was the only silver lining in the thick cloud of tension that hung over our household. Ethan's attempts at conversation felt forced, and my responses were cold, our interactions nothing more than necessary exchanges for Lily's sake. One evening, as Ethan sat across from me at the dinner table, his phone buzzed incessantly, a symphony of pings and vibrations that he diligently ignored. Lily, now more perceptive than ever, picked up on the tension. "Daddy, aren't you going to answer that?" she asked, her fork paused midair. Ethan shot me a wary glance before replying, "It's nothing important, Lily, just work." But Lily's curiosity was piqued. "You work a lot, Daddy. You missed my school play and my soccer game last week." Ethan's face tightened, the lines of guilt etching deeper. "I know, sweetheart. I'm really sorry. I promise I'll make it up to you." But promises were cheap, especially those that had been broken too many times before. I watched them, my heart aching for Lily, who still held hope for her father's redemption. Later that night, as Ethan and I lay in bed, miles apart in the same room, I turned to face him. "Ethan, your phone was going off all through dinner. Is it really just work?" He sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of his secrets. "Kira, I'm trying to fix things. Can't we just leave it at that?" "No, we can't. Not when fixing things means neglecting your family. Who were you texting, Ethan?" His silence was a chasm, deep and wide, filled with unspoken truths. The next morning, I decided it was time to seek those truths myself. While Ethan was in the shower, his phone lay unattended on the kitchen counter. A quick glance confirmed my suspicions. Messages from a contact saved only as E filled the screen, their tone intimate and their content damning. Armed with this knowledge, I confronted Ethan. "Who is E?" I asked, holding his phone up as he walked into the kitchen. Ethan froze, the color draining from his face. "Kira, it's not what you think." "Isn't it? Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." "How should I think about that, Ethan?" My voice was steady, but inside, I was crumbling. He reached for the phone, but I pulled it back. "Ethan, you've been lying to me, to us. How long has this been going on?" The confession, when it came, was a mere whisper. "A few months. I'm sorry, Kira, I never wanted to hurt you." "Hurt me?" The realization that Ethan's betrayal wasn't just emotional but physical felt like a physical blow. The foundation of our marriage, our family, had been shattered by his actions. "I want you to leave," I said, the words cold and final. Ethan's protest was weak. "Kira, please, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain. You've made your choice. Now it's time you live with it, away from Lily and me." The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Ethan moved out, and I focused on Lily, who was confused and hurt by the sudden change. But amidst the turmoil, a fierce determination grew within me. Ethan's negligence and betrayal had not only damaged our family, but had also ignited a resolve within me to protect Lily and ensure that Ethan faced the consequences of his actions. As I lay in bed each night, the silence of the house, a stark reminder of the gaping hole Ethan's departure had left, my thoughts turned to revenge. Not petty acts of spite, but a calculated plan to expose his deceit and ensure he could no longer harm us. For Lily's sake, and for my own, I was ready to fight. This was more than just a broken marriage. It was a battle for justice and a stand against betrayal. In the weeks that followed Ethan's departure, the void he left behind became a space for Lily and me to heal and bond over our shared pain. Yet, beneath the surface of our newfound routine, a storm was brewing, a storm of my own making, aimed squarely at Ethan. One afternoon, as Lily and I sat at the kitchen table working on her school project, the phone rang. The caller ID flashed Ethan's number, a sight that still made my heart skip, not out of love, but a cocktail of anger and anticipation. "Mom, it's Dad," Lily said, her voice a mix of hope and hesitation. I nodded, gesturing for her to answer. "Go ahead, sweetie. I'll be right here." Lily picked up the phone, her voice brightening as she spoke to Ethan. "Hi, Dad. Yeah, we're working on a project about the solar system. Mom's helping me." I listened, my emotions a whirlwind as Lily chatted animatedly, sharing details of her life from which Ethan had chosen to absent himself. After a few minutes, she handed me the phone, her eyes searching mine for any sign of what to expect. Taking a deep breath, I steeled myself. "Ethan?" "Kira, how are you both doing?" His voice was tentative, laced with a guilt that did little to soothe the raw edges of my heart. "We're managing." "What do you want, Ethan?" There was a pause, and then, "I want to see Lily. I miss her, Kira. I miss you both." The words, meant to tug at my heartstrings, only fueled my resolve. "Lily is doing fine. As for seeing her, you know the conditions. Your actions have consequences, Ethan." Ethan's frustration was palpable, even through the phone. "I'm her father, Kira. You can't just cut me out of her life because of a mistake." "A mistake?" The word tasted bitter in my mouth. "No, Ethan. What you did was not a mistake. It was a series of choices that you consciously made, choices that hurt your family. You need to understand the gravity of that." The conversation ended shortly after, with promises from Ethan to do better and pleas for a chance to prove himself. But words were cheap, and his track record spoke volumes. That evening, as I tucked Lily into bed, her question caught me off guard. "Mom, is Dad a bad person?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "No, sweetie. Your dad made some bad choices, but that doesn't necessarily make him a bad person. It's complicated." Lily nodded, her understanding limited by her tender age. "I miss him," she admitted, her voice small. "I know, baby, I know." I kissed her forehead, my heart heavy with the burden of our situation. The days turned into weeks, and as the storm outside mirrored the turmoil in our lives, I began to lay the groundwork for my plan. Ethan's negligence and betrayal would not go unchecked. I started documenting everything. His missed visits, the late-night calls, the text messages from E. Everything would serve as ammunition for the battle ahead. One particularly stormy night, as lightning illuminated the sky and thunder shook the windows, I sat at the kitchen table, poring over the evidence I had gathered. The weather outside seemed to echo the chaos Ethan had brought into our lives, a fitting backdrop for my preparations. The sound of the doorbell shattered the silence, pulling me from my thoughts. I checked the clock. Almost midnight. Who could it be at this hour? I approached the door cautiously, peering through the peephole before opening it to find Ethan on the other side, soaked from the rain, his eyes desperate. "Kira, we need to talk." I can't live like this," he pleaded, his voice breaking. The sight of him, so vulnerable, might have once stirred sympathy in my heart, but those days were long gone. "You should have thought about that before, Ethan. You made your choice." Closing the door on his pleading figure, I turned back to the evidence spread out for me. Ethan's time of reckoning was approaching, and I would be the storm that swept him away. The morning after Ethan's late visit, I woke with a resolve stronger than ever. The sight of him, drenched and desperate, had not softened my heart, but had instead solidified my determination to see through the plan I had been meticulously crafting. Ethan needed to face the full consequences of his actions, not just for me, but for Lily, whose innocent questions about her father's love and absence haunted me. I sat Lily down after breakfast, a serious conversation brewing over the remains of our meal. "Lily, your dad and I are going through a difficult time, as you know. It's important that you understand, no matter what happens, we both love you very much." Lily nodded, her eyes wide and trusting. "I know, Mom, but why doesn't Dad come to see us anymore?" The simplicity of her question stung, a reminder of the complexity of adult failures to a child's heart. "Daddy made some mistakes, sweetheart. Right now, it's important for us to focus on being strong and happy together." As the day progressed, I took steps to initiate the next phase of my plan. I contacted a lawyer, detailing Ethan's neglect, his affair, and the impact of his actions on Lily and me. The lawyer listened, his voice calm and reassuring, promising to guide me through the process of holding Ethan accountable. That evening, Ethan called again, his voice a mixture of desperation and anger. "Kira, you're turning Lily against me. I have rights." "The only person turning Lily against you is you, Ethan. Your actions speak louder than any words could," I replied, my voice steady. "I want to see my daughter. I'll take this to court if I have to," he threatened, his voice gaining an edge. "If that's the route you choose, be prepared to face the consequences. I have documented everything, Ethan. Your neglect, your affair, everything. You think a court will look kindly on that?" There was silence on the other end, the weight of reality settling in. "Kira, please. There has to be another way." "The time for another way has long passed, Ethan. You made your choices. Now you live with them." After hanging up, I felt a surge of empowerment mixed with sorrow. This wasn't the life I had envisioned for us, but I was determined to emerge from this storm stronger, for Lily's sake. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal consultations and preparations. Ethan's sporadic attempts to contact us became more desperate, but I remained firm, bolstered by the support of my lawyer and the unwavering goal of securing a better future for Lily and me. One afternoon, as I collected mail from the mailbox, an envelope caught my eye. It was from Ethan. Hesitating for a moment, I opened it to find a letter and several photographs. Photos of us, happier times that now seemed like a distant memory. His letter spoke of regret, of a desire to turn back time and make different choices. But as I read his words, I couldn't help but feel it was too little, too late. That evening, as Lily and I sat on the couch, her head resting in my lap as we watched her favorite show, I realized the full extent of what I was fighting for. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. Justice for the pain Ethan had caused, for the neglect Lily had suffered, and for the betrayal that had shattered our family. As the days turned into weeks and the legal proceedings began to take shape, my resolve never wavered. Ethan had awakened a strength in me I never knew I had, a strength fueled by love for my daughter and a desire for justice. The storm that had once threatened to break me had instead forged a new path, one where I stood firm against the winds of betrayal and neglect, ready to fight for the future Lily and I deserved. The legal proceedings against Ethan unfolded with a cold, methodical precision that mirrored the detachment I had come to associate with our crumbling marriage. Each document, each piece of evidence, was a brick in the fortress I was building around Lily and me, a defense against the chaos Ethan had brought into our lives. One morning, as I prepared for another meeting with my lawyer, Lily approached me, her expression serious beyond her years. "Mom, will I have to choose between you and Dad?" Her question stopped me in my tracks. Kneeling down, I took her hands in mine. "No, sweetheart. This isn't about choosing sides. It's about making sure we're safe and happy. I'll do everything in my power to make sure you feel loved and protected, no matter what." Lily nodded, a semblance of relief washing over her face. "Okay, Mom, I trust you." The meeting with my lawyer that day was a turning point. Armed with the evidence of Ethan's neglect and infidelity, we outlined our strategy. But it was the private investigator's report that truly shifted the balance in our favor. Photos and detailed accounts of Ethan's affair, his frequent absences, and neglect of Lily painted a damning picture that no courtroom could ignore. "Ethan will have a hard time disputing these," my lawyer remarked, flipping through the report. "This strengthens your case significantly." As the court date approached, Ethan's attempts to reach out became more frantic. Voicemails and letters piled up, each one a desperate plea for reconciliation, for a second chance I knew we couldn't afford to give him. The day of the hearing was a maelstrom of emotions. Standing before the judge, I recounted the events that had led us here, each word a testament to the battle we'd been fighting in silence. Ethan, on the other hand, seemed diminished, his usual confidence replaced by a palpable sense of defeat. "Mrs. Wilson, your testimony and the evidence presented make a compelling case," the judge said, his voice grave. "Mr. Wilson, do you have anything to say in your defense?" Ethan's reply was a mix of apologies and excuses, a last-ditch effort to sway the judge's opinion. But the evidence was irrefutable, the impact of his actions on Lily and me undeniable. In the end, the judge's ruling was a vindication of everything we had endured. Full custody was granted to me, along with a stipulation for supervised visits for Ethan, should he seek them. The court also ordered Ethan to undergo counseling, recognizing the need for him to address the issues that had led to his neglectful behavior. As we left the courtroom, I felt Lily's hand slip into mine, her grip tight. "Is it over, Mom?" she asked, her voice hopeful yet tinged with uncertainty. I squeezed her hand, a promise in my grasp. "It's a new beginning, sweetie. We can start healing now." The victory in court was bittersweet. While it offered a legal resolution to our struggles, the emotional scars remained, a reminder of the cost of Ethan's betrayal. Yet as Lily and I walked out into the sunlight, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. The battle was over, but our journey of healing was just beginning. In the weeks that followed, Lily and I focused on rebuilding our lives. Therapy sessions, weekend outings, and quiet evenings at home became our new normal. Slowly, the laughter returned to our house, filling the spaces that grief and betrayal had once occupied. Ethan's attempts to reconnect became less frequent as he started his court-ordered counseling. I hoped, for Lily's sake, that he would find the help he needed to be a better father, even if from a distance. As for me, the fight had revealed a strength I never knew I possessed, a resilience forged in the fires of adversity. For Lily, for myself, I had stood up against the storm and emerged stronger. Our future was uncertain, but we faced it together, united by love and a bond that no betrayal could sever. The newfound peace in our home was palpable, a serene contrast to the storm that had raged before. Lily's laughter became the soundtrack of our lives, each day a step further away from the darkness that had once threatened to engulf us. But the final act of this drama was yet to unfold, a confrontation that would close the chapter on Ethan's betrayal once and for all. It was a crisp autumn morning when the call came. A number I didn't recognize flashed on my phone, but intuition urged me to answer. "Hello? Is this Kira Wilson?" The voice was unfamiliar, hesitant. "Yes, speaking. I think you need to know something about your husband, Ethan." The caller paused, as if weighing the impact of her next words. I was involved with him, but there's more you should know." The revelation wasn't a shock, but the call was a catalyst, setting in motion the final confrontation I had both dreaded and anticipated. We agreed to meet, and as I sat across from Ethan's mistress in a quiet corner of a local cafe, her story unfolded, a tale of lies and promises, similar to the one Ethan had woven around us. Armed with this new information, and with evidence that underscored Ethan's inability to change, I knew what had to be done. It wasn't just for me anymore, but for Lily, and for every promise Ethan had broken. Confronting Ethan wasn't a decision I made lightly. As I stood at his doorstep, Lily by my side, a mix of resolve and apprehension coursed through me. When he opened the door, his surprise at seeing us was evident, quickly replaced by a cautious wariness. "Kira, Lily, what are you doing here?" Ethan's voice betrayed a hint of fear, a recognition of the reckoning that stood before him. "We know, Ethan. We know everything." My voice was steady, belying the turmoil inside. "Know what? Kira, I can explain." Ethan's attempt at deflection was cut short by the evidence I presented, the final nails in the coffin of his deceit. The confrontation was intense, a cathartic release of months of pain and betrayal. Ethan's attempts to justify his actions fell on deaf ears, his words empty and devoid of the remorse we needed to hear. "You chose this path, Ethan. You chose to step outside our marriage, to break the trust that held our family together," I said, each word underscored by a conviction forged in the fires of betrayal. Lily's presence was a silent testament to the stakes of this confrontation. Her eyes, wide and watchful, bore witness to the crumbling facade of the father she had idolized. The realization of his loss seemed to finally dawn on Ethan, the understanding that there was no going back from the damage he had caused. "I'm sorry," he whispered, a plea for forgiveness that came too late. "Sorry doesn't undo the hurt, Ethan. It doesn't bring back the time you missed with Lily, the moments you chose to spend elsewhere." My voice broke, the weight of our collective pain bearing down on me. As we turned to leave, Ethan's voice, now laced with desperation, called out, "Kira, please, don't do this. We can still fix this." But it was over. The finality of our departure marked the end of our shared journey, a chapter closed on a marriage undermined by betrayal. In the days that followed, Lily and I leaned on each other, finding strength in our bond. The confrontation with Ethan had been a necessary closure, a way to reclaim our dignity and move forward, unburdened by the shadow of his actions. Our lives, though forever altered, began to find a new rhythm, a new normal. The pain of the past remained, a scar on our hearts, but it no longer defined us. We had faced the storm together, and in its aftermath, we found a resilience and a hope for the future that no betrayal could diminish. The aftermath of our confrontation with Ethan marked the beginning of a new chapter for Lily and me, one filled with hope, but shadowed by the remnants of past betrayals. We found solace in the embrace of my parents, who welcomed us into their home with open arms, their support a beacon of light in the lingering darkness. As we settled into our new life, the reality of our situation began to crystallize. Ethan, faced with the consequences of his actions, spiraled into a solitude of his own making. His career suffered, friendships waned, and his financial stability crumbled under the weight of alimony and child support payments mandated by the court. The social ostracism he experienced served as a stark reminder of the price of betrayal. One day, as Lily and I sat in the garden, basking in the tranquility of a life slowly piecing itself back together, she looked up at me with a question that had been lingering in her eyes for weeks. "Mom, do you think Dad will ever be part of our lives again?" I paused, considering the weight of her question. "Lily, your dad made some very big mistakes. It's up to him to make amends, to show that he's changed. But it's also okay for us to move forward, to find happiness without waiting for that to happen." Lily nodded, a maturity beyond her years settling over her features. "I just wish things could have been different," she whispered. "So do I, sweetheart, so do I," I replied, pulling her into a hug. The simplicity of the moment underscored the complexity of our journey, a journey of healing and rediscovery. The weeks turned into months, and as the seasons changed, so too did the narrative of our lives. I returned to work, embracing the challenges and satisfaction that came with my career. Lily thrived in school, her resilience a testament to her strength. Together, we navigated the waters of our new reality, finding joy in the simplicity of our daily routines. It was during this time of quiet reconstruction that I began to reflect on the journey we had undertaken. The pain, the betrayal, the fight for justice had all led us to this moment, a moment of tentative peace and cautious optimism. The struggle had not only been about revenge or holding Ethan accountable. It had been about reclaiming our lives, about ensuring that Lily grew up in a world where she felt loved, valued, and protected. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, the beauty of the moment felt like a balm to the scars we bore. "Mom, do you think we'll ever be able to forgive Dad?" Lily's question broke the silence, her voice tinged with curiosity and hope. I took a deep breath, considering her words. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting, Lily. It's about letting go of the anger and hurt so it doesn't hold us back. Your dad has a lot of work to do, but maybe one day we'll be able to forgive him. For now, let's focus on us, on building the happiest life we can." Lily smiled, a reflection of the peace we had fought so hard to achieve. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, Lily. More than anything." As the sky turned from pink to deep blue, the stars beginning to twinkle in the twilight, I realized that our story was one of resilience, of the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter. Despite the turmoil, the heartache, and the battles we had faced, we emerged stronger, united by our journey from despair to empowerment. Our future was uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities in equal measure. But one thing was clear. Whatever lay ahead, Lily and I would face it together, our love and strength a testament to the power of starting anew.